Hey Nathan, welcome back, brother.
Ahoy! How are you doing, Johnny? You all right?
Loving life. Yeah, sorry folks. You may have heard me just laughing there at the start. We've just having a really funny chat before this. I've seen some podcasts, Nathan, actually
Yeah.
do like spoofs and like the reels before and after podcasts and stuff. Maybe that's something we could offer
Oh,
to certain
like
Patreons and stuff.
outtakes.
Outtakes, that's exactly the word I was looking for. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because we end up because like I always in a way regret like asking you the question, is there anything you want to talk about? Because you go off and you go off on one and say some really good I'd say some really good stuff, and I'm like, we really should be recording now. This is really valuable.
Oh,
You do end up repeating yourself again in the podcast, but at the same time it's good to hear it the first time around, because it's never exactly the same. But
that's
yeah.
true.
So folks, this is first week of February. And
Congratulations on surviving January.
yeah, welcome to the next level of 2021. You only just got past the season opener. So you survived season one, 2020. Welcome to season two. Um, yeah, so this month's theme on this topic of today will be relationships and creating wholesome and long-lasting relationships and why they're important. So this is off the back of another TED Talk, which you obviously will get to know me. I love a good TED Talk, and this one was based on the longest ever study of happiness. I think it was 75 years, if I remember rightly. Was that
Still going, isn't it?
in
Yeah.
fact, you're right. Yeah, it's still going, which is incredible considering that 99.9% of the studies of this kind fail because of either run out of funding or the participants stop replying. So the fact that this is still going is incredible. And so if you watch the video, which I highly recommend, um, something that I fell into statistic wise was they asked a group of millennials, what do you want to get out of life essentially.
Yeah.
What is a major aim, and 80% said they would like to become rich or earn a certain amount of money, and I was like, yep, 100% there. Not for money's sake, but to afford the lifestyle I want. um,
Mhm.
and then I believe that within that same band, I think the statistic was 50 to 60% around that. I
50.
thought 50
Yeah.
was like, I want to be famous.
Ugh.
I'm going to be honest, I don't share that ambition. Yeah,
Nah.
I'm
No,
content.
thank you.
Yeah, maybe again hypocritical of me in this, that I'm putting my face on YouTube and out there in the world, but I'm content not being Joe Rogan. Put it that way. Um, at the same time, it, it made me that really struck a chord with me, because it was like, well, okay, well, this is what the majority of my generation think. We're all quite similar minded, and by the end of this talk, it came out to be that the healthiest, happiest, and most satisfied individuals within this 75-year and ongoing study, um, they were happiest because they had the best relationships and intentional relationships. Um, so it was interesting in that these people were healthier, their cognitive abilities didn't decline as quickly. They just felt happier. Again, I mentioned their health physically was in a lot better shape.
Yeah, yeah.
Emotionally, mentally, the whole look across the board, they were all in the green. But the
Mhm.
people who suffered the most in life had the worst relationships, or they didn't
Yeah.
have they didn't they were perhaps surrounded by people, but those people were draining, or they didn't uplift and edify them. And what
Yeah.
I found really interesting, Nathan, was that there was two groups of men, wasn't there? There was one from Harvard, which you expect 100% success rate, and then
Yeah.
there was a group from like one of the poorest areas in Boston, and
Yeah.
it mentioned how some from Boston actually climbed the social ladder and got to the very top, and these people from Harvard, who should you just assume will naturally succeed at everything they touch, ended up going into decline, and it was all
Mm.
down to their relationships.
Yeah.
So I know for me, just my own personal experience, that something we share, Nathan, is a life at sea.
Hmm. Oh,
And
yes.
oh yes, and it's amazing how in a lot of ways you're thrown together with people you would never normally associate with, you would never
Yes. Yeah.
normally be friends with.
Mm.
So I have been friends with and still am friends with a full blown Satanist. I have had friends who are Norse pagans.
Yep.
I've had people who um, are just downright weird.
Yep.
I've
Yeah.
I've been friends with Olympians. I've been friends with people from all weird and wonderful walks of life. I was once friends with someone whose only job before he joined the Navy was a shepherd. That was his only job. Like, no, not paper boy, no, no, nothing, not mechanic. No, what did you do for a living? I was literally a shepherd, and I got bored to look after sheep one day and walked into the careers office.
I
I was
mean,
like,
there
I
you
was
go.
like, I was like, fair enough. Um, Not surprisingly, he was Welsh, and yeah. So
Say
I mean,
no more.
say no more. But what I found was that this collection of misfits and weirdos, and people who of
Of
varying
which I
degree.
am one.
Oh yeah, 100, that's why we love you, Nathan. Um, but that this collection of people who in no other circumstance would I have ever met grew
Mm.
to be some of my best friends, and I've shared
Yeah.
some of the most amazing experiences of my life with these people.
Mm.
And I just with that chat or that TED talk, really hit home in that my experiences at sea, I think, would have been a lot more dull and a lot harder without these characters, as
Mm.
weird as they were. And as I'm not saying everyone was weird. There were obviously average Joes as well, but that mixture of people who, in no other circumstance, would ever meet, but yet it worked because we had
Mm.
that one common goal. But also the fact that we didn't write each other off. Sure, we all kind of went, You're a bit of a weird and a quirky one, but sure, let's go for a pint anyway."
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
what I really liked about it was that because we were in such close confines and we had a common shared struggle, especially from an engineering perspective of, this pump's broken, or we've been up for 2 days trying to repair this so we can leave port on time.
Yeah.
That common struggle that, bonds you together.
Mm.
And you go through the worst times and the best times together, family bereavements, or, people having kids and stuff, or marriages.
Mm.
And it's amazing, just, you have the whole human experience wrapped up with your little group of misfits and
Yeah.
weirdos. But these people, beyond those titles, end up becoming first and foremost your friends.
Yeah.
And those friendships I find that I was able to cultivate really, really helped me through some mad times. So, for me, certainly when I was at sea and maybe I just was not have I was going through a certain phase of life where I wasn't feeling great, or I was just having a bad day, and it's my quirky Satanist mate who spends the time to sit down with me and just shut up and listen to what I have to say and make
Mm.
me a cup of tea. Or, the amount of times I've come to you for advice, you know what I mean? A big, big, burly, jolly Viking. It's like, Nathan, I'm stumped. What do I do here? And,
Yeah.
you know, I, I think that, I'm 28 now, so I've still got a long way to go, hopefully, touch wood. But something so far that it almost contradicts is that, like I said, I fell into that bracket of 80. I fell into the bracket of 80%. I want to earn money, and I had good amount of money to afford the lifestyle I want. But that TED talk really did make me step back and think: Am I sacrificing my relationships here and now in the present for
Mm.
the you know non tangible goal? Really, in the short and medium term, eh, am I? This money certainly will provide me with opportunities, but am I going to get all this money and then look back and go, crap, I've got no one to share it with, or I've got, or I've missed out on experiences with
Yeah.
amazing people.
Yeah.
And that TED talk was only 12 minutes long, but it blew my mind and completely changed my perspective. You
Yeah. Yeah.
know, um,
It's good, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, I think millennials, like, including myself, have perfected the art of the quarter life crisis. We're no, first you do go through that phase in your 20s where you think, I'm not where I want to be, or I haven't made it as far as I'd have liked, or something I've noticed, and slight tangent here, but I've noticed there's a lot of lockdown guilt. Like, a lot of people have made their lockdowns very productive, started businesses, started podcasts, started doing this and that, and then others have just watched Netflix. And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, exactly. I've watched my fair amount of Netflix as well. And I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, I understand that, but let's not guilt trip people into it. Something I thought about staying on the topic of relationships is how many parents have gotten closer to their kids now? Granted, they've probably lost a fair amount of hair with stress and trying to educate their own children. But the
Yeah,
amount of memories they'll have made through lockdown,
yeah,
built bonding in those relationships, or the married couple who never seen each other because they were always working and then came home and perhaps spent time in separate rooms watching TV, trying to quote unquote rest. Go back to our previous episode, folks, in the 7 types of rest, and you'll see that.
yeah.
um and yeah, I think that this lockdown has provided a very unique opportunity for us to reset our relationships, to really go, yeah, actually, what is the state of my relationships, romantic and non-romantic, and
Yep.
to go, am I being fully intentional here? Am I really investing in these people? Um, I know I've gone on for a bit there, Nathan, but what's your take
No,
on the
it's
whole?
good.
What do you think? What's your perspective on not only that TED talk, but relationships in general?
Um, no, I think it's good to hear what you took away from watching that TED talk. I mean, you sent me the link the other day, and I sat and watched it and listened, and I think that you know the concept of relationships, I think, forms a very key part in all of us, in all of our lives. And I think what you're saying about lockdown and particularly in this COVID times, um, that we we've all suddenly realised, even if we were people who were quite happy and content in our own company, just how much we miss people. And whilst things such as like Zoom that we're using at the minute to converse, and I can see your jolly face. It's not the same. I mean, just the other day on the TV was an advert for the Six Nations coming up, and all I was thinking was, oh, I'm not going to get to sit in the pub with Johnny and Mikey and
Mm.
watch the rugby. Do you know what I mean? And that, oh sure, yeah, we could all agree that we'll watch it at the same time together and have a beer, but that's pants. I want to be sat in the pub, and I want you to be giving me grief every time some young whipper Irish lad, jumps over the try line. Do you know what I mean? That it's all that kind of thing, isn't it? That that is missing at the moment. Because you know, you sending me a text message laughing at the scoreline is not the same as you laughing in my face at the scoreline. Do you know what I mean?
Hundred
It's, it's
percent.
it's not the same. And so when we're looking at this, we're talking about these things about relationships, and particularly what that guy was saying. I mean, to a certain degree, every one of us, is working towards wealth. Whether it's masses of wealth, whether you're like you know, um, a Richard Branson, working towards the billions, or whether you're just working towards paying your rent and bills at the end of the month, you're still working towards wealth of some description. Um, and I think really, I mean, we may not want that kind of um, Britain's Got Talent style fame, but there is a little thing in all of us that would just like to be noticed. Even if it's just by a couple of people, never mind, masses. Um, so I think we might not tick the box. Yeah, I want to be famous, and and we might not even necessarily tick the box. Yeah, I want to be wealthy. But there is, there are elements of those things. But I think that that uh, that study, it's the fact that it didn't just prove it once. It's the fact that it was an ongoing, because the original men that they started that study with have all got older, but they've kept adding more test subjects, if you like, every few years, and the fact that those, the conclude, constantly coming back result every time is is that the people who fared better were the ones who were in good relationships, and that's whether they were from, you know, like you said, that kind of higher educated, higher earning background, or the lower educated, lower earning background. That bit didn't seem to impact it as much as relationships did. And so if you were a Harvard professor in a good solid relationship, your life, if you like, would have been as fulfilled and achieving as the guy down the road who's sweeping the bins, who's sweeping the streets, who's also in a good and healthy, has good and healthy relationships. So I think that that, and whilst there's nothing wrong with aspiring, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve, and I think that's that's part of the human endeavor, isn't it? That desiring to achieve. I think that if you're gonna sacrifice relationships for those achievements, I don't think that's as much fun. I think doing something, the Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing, when they climbed Everest, they went up there, and the legend goes that when they got within reaching distance of the peak, that they basically they touched the peak together. They did it at the same time. It wasn't like, I'm Edmund Hillary, look at me, I've got up here, I'm really, really good. Him and Tenzing had done it together, and so they touched the top of Mount Everest together. And so as the first two people in recorded history, or whatever it was, to to summit Mount Everest, and there's something about, they did that in relationship, and I think, again, going back to what you were talking about in our well, my previous employment and your current employment, the things that we do, where it forges you and changes, and so you're doing something together. I think those two men would have started at the bottom of the mountain. The two men at the top were different, in terms of their relationship with one another. And so I think when we're looking at these things, the pursuit of getting to the top of Everest, that's a weighty endeavor. But the two of them achieved it together, kind of made it better, I think. If you think about when we think about like the Apollo moon landings, those guys in that capsule who went up to the moon and planted the flag and did all that kind of spacewalked and all that kind of stuff. That's very cool. But how many people were back down at NASA? And so when Matey Boy said that, one small step for man, but a giant leap for mankind, he's, we're doing this. It's a relationship, isn't it? The relationship of humanity achieving something, which is bonkers. I think we're so used to seeing sci-fi programs and stuff now that we don't really think about it. But getting three people essentially on a bang stick to the moon, is crazy, isn't it? It's a loony idea, but there they are, and so to say that it was it's humanity, it's a relationship, of that common goal, and I think again, I think there was that nice little diagram, wasn't there, the other time when we chatted about the different types of rest. I wonder if there's a similar one of different types of relationships. I didn't bother to look; it only just occurred to me right now. But you got in the, again, going back to sort of my Christian experience, and this is, please, I'm not going into a debate now, debate mode. I'm just going to quote something. Okay, in the creation narrative in Genesis, everything that God makes, He says, is good, but then there's one bit that He says isn't good, and it says it's not good that the man is alone. And then it's immediately after that you get the creation of woman, giving man someone to be in relationship with, and then that's when God says that's good, And so in the creation narrative, there's the written into it is relationship, And again in the New Testament that was largely written in Greek, you've got, unfortunately in English it's just translated as the word love, but in Greek there was different words for it that we still have now, but we don't use them in the same context. Um, and so when we use the word love, you could say that you could say that you love your mum, but then also say that you love a fish supper. But they're two very different things, aren't they? When you're using that word love, it's two very different things. I don't think, I might be wrong, I don't think you'd throw yourself in front of a bus for a fish supper, but I'm fairly certain you probably would for your mum. Yet you use the word love to describe both of them. And when we're talking about our work colleagues or stuff like that, and friends and other family relatives and things like that, some people can get really weird about using the word love, you know, um, to say that, Johnny, I love you, and it's not, and it's not a weird, I want to touch you in odd places, love. It's not, I don't want to wake up with your breath on my neck, you know, um, and but the word there, love, is is the fact that when I think about you, it's a good thought, it's a smile. When I get a WhatsApp from you saying this is what I'd like to chat about in our next podcast together, I'm genuinely pleased and happy that I've got a message from you.
Mhm.
And that, I think, and so when we're using the word love, it's that there are levels of love, and within those levels of love, I think, are levels of relationship as well. And so there's that kind of love for all humanity, that you can walk down the street and past a complete stranger and nod and smile and
Mhm.
wish them a good day. And then there's that kind of and the charities are very good at doing this. The adverts they make, particularly in the run up to Christmas, are pulling on that bit of us that loves all humanity. So when you see these kids in third world countries or wherever, and they just need a this, that, and the other, and you're like, yes, take all the money I've got. It's terrible, because they're drawing on that bit of us that loves humans.
Yeah.
Um, but when we, but I'm, if I was to, start giving my £5 a month or whatever it is to Water Aid or whatever, I don't necessarily love the people who are receiving that £5. It's just a way of assuaging Western guilt or white guilt, or whatever you want to call it. But actually, if when we're talking about a relationship, again, I think it's something that we, you know, millennials and the generation that followed us, we're very much an instantaneous generation. It's now, isn't it? It's now. You get, how many adverts are telling us not to bother cooking, just to download the Deliveroo app
Yeah.
and instant food. You know, um, my mobile device, I can switch the screen on, and I have access to all the world's knowledge as it stands. And what do I use it for? Well, I use it to get cake recipes. Brilliant. I could literally get anything on there, any information that the world has got, you could probably access through your mobile device. And I'm sat there liking pictures about dogs. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think, I would say that, to my shame, my relationship with my mobile device is probably stronger than it is with most humans. Um,
Same for most people, I think.
yeah, but we want it, but that is instantaneous information, instantaneous, like it's there, bang, you want it. Yeah, you want to check your bank account, it's there. You want to know what time the next flight from Manchester Airport, not that they're flying at the minute, but bang, it's there. You want to know what the current temperature is in Kuala Lumpur. Yes, it's there. That information. Why do you need to know that? But it's instantaneous. But if I want to know how you are, and I want to know what makes you happy and what makes you sad, and I want you to know what makes me happy and what makes me sad, that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And that also takes making mistakes, and it takes being brave, and it sometimes takes being bad to learn as well, and we don't like that. We don't like the fact that, you know, and again, I think it shows, it's displayed, and we've touched on it before about, in the weird ethereal world of social media, where someone says something that you disagree with, and rather than just going, "Oh, I disagree with that," rage happens, and
Yeah.
and people, and friendships disappear, and families are broken up because someone said something, rather than taking the time to go, "Oh, right, I noticed you said that. What was your thinking behind that?" Or, "I completely disagree with that thing you just said, but I still like you. We can still be pals. That's okay."
Mm-hmm.
And I think so. I think, like, when that study, although he didn't really go into it so much in the TED talk, and I would recommend it. Are you going to put a link for it on the
I am, yeah.
Facebooks and stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The show notes are going to be,
yeah,
it's going to have the link to it.
yeah. I would recommend watching it. Like Johnny said, it's less than quarter of an hour long, but it's quite eye opening. But they didn't say about the, obviously, but they wouldn't do so much because it's only 15 minutes long. But the how many of those people who were going well because they were in good relationships, how many times they messed up, how many times they got it wrong, how many times they've had to go and say, "I'm sorry," or say, "I forgive you," you know, or go and say, "Can you forgive me?"
Yeah.
Or wherever it is. And I think that, it's, we want instantaneous. I want it now. I want gratification now, in whatever form it takes. I don't want to have to work. I don't want to have to, like, I wonder how many of those 80% of millennials who wanted to be rich were sat with their thumb up their backside going, "Oh, I wish I was rich," or, because it's, wanting to be rich and going out and becoming rich are two different things, aren't they?
Oh, 100%.
And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with either of those. But if you sat with your thumb up your backside complaining that you're not rich, you're never going to get rich, are you?
Oh, of course.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, and it's the same with relationships. I think whether that's um, you know whether that's um, romantic relationships, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, long-term partner, however you wish to write it. I don't know, or whether it's, like I said to you before we started recording, this year I'm hitting the dreaded 40, and I'm unmarried and single, but I'm very content in that place. But equally, I am in very satisfying and fulfilling relationships with people
Yeah.
that doesn't involve sexual intercourse or any of those things. Just like I was saying at the beginning about the Six Nations, my relationship with you and with Mikey and with other people in that rugby posse, it's very satisfying, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
it's good.
100%.
But those relationships didn't happen over one pint. They've grown, and over the years of us doing those things together, and and equally, like, the other relationships that I'm in, other friendships I have, um, not one of them was instantaneous. And there's a couple of friends I've got who, when I first met them, I was like, "I do not like you. I do not like you one bit." You know, but then equally, there are certain characters who shine through. I don't know if who are different. There was a people who just almost immediately, like, bam, you're like, yes, you're a great human, amazing. And but but so I don't think there's I think when we're looking at these things, I think, yeah, sure, pursue fame, brilliant. If you want to be famous, go for it. If you want to be rich, you know, all power to you, go for it. If you want to be the Prime Minister of Britain, goodness knows why you'd want to do that. If you wanted to be the CEO of a firm, if you want to do any of those things, or if you want to be the librarian of a village library bus, go for it. But don't do it on your own. you
Yeah.
know, like you don't want to be in a situation where like and I'm speaking personally to you, and I don't think you're doing this at all, Johnny. I don't think you're doing this at all. But but to achieve that level of lifestyle that you desire, but have no one to share a beer with in that lifestyle.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think because I know you well, I know that actually your motivation would be to have that level of lifestyle with people involved in it.
Yeah. 100%.
That's
Yeah.
you are not a lone wolf. You're not out, trying to do those things. And I don't know. It's quite interesting, isn't it? I know this is a vaguely controversial subject to talk about now, and I'll avoid the controversy where I can. But the statues of people
Yeah.
that are around. Can you imagine that if they did a statue for everybody who was in that person's staff?
Yeah.
Because that although that person might be the big honcho who did whatever they did, they were never on their own.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and so I think that there's like you look at the teams that people surround themselves with, and like I mean, like him or loathe him, Donald Trump surrounded himself with a very interesting team. And he did things with the team of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think anyone would survive the 4-year term as president of the US if they were just doing it on their own. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
and even the VP has a team. And it's the relationship of that team that makes the country work. And if you look at here in Britain, whenever you have a cabinet that's split and has division and things like that, you have a very ineffective government.
Of course. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's the relationship of those cabinet ministers that makes the government effective. And and so I'm not going to go down the politics route at all, but you see it from that, so a big like national level. Like why is it that the UN sometimes is massively ineffective? Well, it's because there's no relationship really, is there?
Yeah.
you know um and because we're all too prepared to die for a rag on a stick. um our flag is what I mean by that. And so our own sense of national identity stops us from being able to have a relationship with the people in the country next door. um or even, dare I say it, where you are from, my dear boy, the people down the next street. um
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It can be complicated.
yeah, but and that's sad, isn't it? I mean, and those things, I know, they've ruined families, ruined people. And again, around where I am, it's not the same as where it is over there. But the football team you support, the wherever, on one hand, you know, if you're with those people, you're in a great relationship and everyone's okay. But if you're not, if you're with the other team, then all of a sudden everything is dangerous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And why should it be? Why should it be? Why do I need to punch someone in the face because they support a different football team to me, or why do they need to punch me in the face? Let's not do that. Can we just enjoy the footy? Why is I don't know if you've seen it in the news this week. Some of the football players, they're getting racism hurled at them on social media because they miss a goal,
Yeah. It's
or
just unacceptable, is it?
or
It's
they
just,
fail to save a goal. Yeah,
yeah.
but where's the relationship there? And what's nice is that what's good is seeing other people rally around them, and and offer that affirming and positive relationship. And I think that's that's something that we should be when we're looking for relationships, that's what we should be pursuing. And we all know those people again who, there are people who are drains, and it
100%.
doesn't matter how much you pour into them, they're still empty, and it can leave you feeling wrecked and reeling and empty. And but then I suppose if you have positive relationships, then actually you can afford to pour into those people because you're getting topped up
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
positive relationships you've got. And I think, like, and it doesn't, yeah, and I think like stuff that we've touched on previously, relationship isn't about having someone who 100% agrees with you. Relationship isn't about someone who 100% thinks you're the best thing on earth. Um, Relationship sometimes is that person who, and I think way more beneficial is that person who goes, mate, you're so wrong there.
Yeah. Yeah. You do prefer a friend like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And equally though, don't get me wrong, it's nice when they go, spot on, Nath, well done. That's great. But also, but having that wherewithal to go, oh man, if Johnny's just told me I'm wrong, I need to reassess this.
Yeah.
I need
Yep.
I, I need to think this because actually I know he's only got my best interests at heart. So I need to reassess this.
Yeah.
And that's where the hard work, the graft of relationship comes in, isn't it? And we need to kind of try and break free from the instantaneousness of our generation,
Oh yeah. Hundred
um,
percent.
to go, actually, this thing's worth the hard work. You know, this summer, my parents will be celebrating their 41st wedding anniversary.
Oh,
Um,
congratulations.
yeah, and I can't, and it's quite a, I don't think in all those 41 years they've agreed on everything,
No, I'd be very
you
surprised if they
know,
did.
and I don't think in all those 41 years everything's been, you know, peachy every single day, but they've put the graft in, you know, and the and that's achievement unlocked, 41 years. Um, so, and I think there's things like that when you stop and think about it, that it is because each one of us on our own is a bit of a pot mess. So if you put two people together, that's a double pot mess. You put eight people together, goodness knows, like where does it stop? But it's knowing that that person isn't perfect, but also knowing that you're not.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah. Yeah. That's very well said, Nathan. Yeah. It's interesting with everything that you've said, and that I think the main thing that certainly I took away from that TED talk, and certainly what you said, is that the relationships, the ones that really carry weight and mean something in our lives, are not built instantaneously. Like
absolutely.
we've known each other for what, 9, 10 years now. It's kind of
Yeah,
like,
something like
we
that.
have, we've that rapport, we have that, history to our
Yeah,
friendship. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I think we've all been there on a Friday night, absolutely leathered, and you've met someone who's equally as leathered as you are, and suddenly you're best mates and you add each other on
yeah.
Facebook, and then the next day you never talk to each other again. You're like, it's like, yeah,
Yep,
that's not a bad
yep.
thing, but it's just,
No.
it's there's those types of relationships, and then there's the more longer lasting ones, which carry a bit more weight. But
Mm.
something that you touched on earlier that I want to just visit before the hour is up is that, um it is the relationship, we've talked about at length the relationships we have with other people,
Mm.
but I would briefly like to discuss the relationship we have with ourselves.
Ooh.
Because if we don't, I don't think if we're sorted in our own headspace, it
Mm.
doesn't matter what relationships we try to go after or cultivate. I don't think
Mm.
it's gonna last very long.
Yeah.
And I think you said something very profound, which I'm still thinking about, and that is the relationship we have with our phones, more often than not, is the one we cultivate the most and the
Oh
one
yeah.
we focus on the most. I mean, I mean, don't get me wrong, your phone is just a free dopamine hit. Who needs, what I mean? Don't get, like, this is a full disclaimer here. I have never taken any kind of illegal drug. I know
Same.
some people say you've never lived, but
Mm,
it's just not, that's just not up my alley. It's not something that's ever really
absolutely.
interested
Couldn't
me.
agree with you. Couldn't
But
agree more with you.
I would I'm embarrassed almost, and I use that in the full weight of the word to say that I have been in the past addicted to my phone, to the point where it is just endlessly scrolling. And I'm
Yeah.
not it's
Yeah.
not, the relation I'm building up this relationship with my phone where it's permanently attached to me at the hip. And when I just
Yeah.
need that quick dopamine hit just
Yeah.
through the act of scrolling or
Yeah.
getting a like or a share or something, it's kind of like, whoa, it's great. And then you're in for the next dopamine hit. And it's
And when
like,
you're genuinely concerned for it because it's got to 68% battery, oh no, it might
yeah,
not. You might not survive, little
yeah,
one.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, not to bring the whole episode on a downer, but something to bear in mind is that unfortunately, childhood or children drowning at the beach has become very, very common in the past 10 to 20 years since mobile
Mm,
phones came out, because parents have been so infatuated with their phone that they
mm,
haven't been looking at their kids in the beach, and then the kids obviously being curious go out to sea. Now, thankfully, I've of all the stories I've heard, they've all survived because the Coast Guard are amazing people, and the lifeguards are amazing people, and they catch it before it's too late. But that's a whole drama, and then you've got trauma for the kid. Um, so yeah, it's something we really need to think about, and like what's more important, the endless scrolling or
mm.
or the relationships that really matter in our lives. So with that in mind, something I do want to draw everyone's attention to is the um other, for lack of a better word to describe this, the epidemic of loneliness within our society,
Yeah.
especially with lockdown.
Mm.
This is an extrovert's worst nightmare. I, on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
hand, love solitude. I'm quite happy. I don't get me wrong. I do. I can get lonely as well, but I love. I don't need as much social stimulation, so to speak, as others. Some people are the life of the party. I'm happy to go along to the party, drink, and then call it a night and go back. And that's me.
Yeah.
But there's, on a serious note, there's a lot of people out there right now who are really, really struggling.
Yeah.
And the statistic that got me was that in that TED talk, 1 in 5 Americans will report loneliness. Those are the ones that have bothered replying, so it's probably higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
could be too high as 2 or 3 people, and it's the
Mm.
same as you could feel lonely in a marriage, you could feel lonely in a friendship, you could feel
Yeah.
lonely in a
In a crowded room.
crowded nightclub. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, so something I would say, this is something for you to do in your own time.
Yeah.
Really analyze the relationship that you have, not just with your phone, because it is your phone just distracting you from what you don't want to sit around. Like, that was something I went for. I always run without music. I always exercise without music. I know some people are like, that's just, you're psychotic, but
Yeah.
I prefer being in my own mind. I prefer wrestling with what I have to wrestle with rather than having to put it off. It's not pretty, but I find, this is my own personal life experience, that listening to my favorite music or just putting it off, if I put it off long enough, I just end up in a bad way. So if I'm really struggling with something, I do, in a weird way, just sit with it and I just deal with it. But this comes back to also what I want to say is, in having that relationship with yourself.
Mm.
Um, there was a famous French philosopher that I've only learned about recently, who unfortunately passed away in the 50s in a car crash. But to paraphrase one of his most famous quotes, it was, I looked into myself and found an endless summer. So that for me was like, in especially times like this where everyone is suffering loneliness to
Mm.
a certain degree, because we obviously can't interact with the people we want. I'm the same. I would love to be in Portsmouth right now with you and Mikey and the rest of the gang, on a
Yeah.
pint and poking fun at England, as we all like to do. Um,
How dare you, sir?
how dare you? Um, but we can't do that, unfortunately. Um, but what we can do is find rest in our own minds and in our own souls.
Yeah,
And this comes back again to what we were saying about 5 minutes ago about make sure you're right with yourself first. Make sure you're calibrated and continue to recalibrate yourself so that your mind is rested, your soul is rested.
mm,
Because if you're in a bad way, the relationships that are around you are naturally going to suffer, and you're not going to
yeah.
cultivate them either.
No.
What's your take on it?
I mean, I think that's good, but on saying that, don't sit and wait to be perfect before you go out to forge relationships.
hundred
You
percent.
know, part
Well
of it
said.
is, you know, you're a mess, fine, brilliant. So am I. Let's be mates.
Yeah.
Let's pursue a relationship together, regardless. I mean, because I think you know, I think I don't know if your Iron Council is has ever used the phrase, but there's one of the proverbs, one of the wise sayings in the Bible is that iron sharpens iron.
That
And
is used a lot in it. Yes.
okay, and it's you know the the only way you get a sharp sword is by running iron down the side of it and taking off the nicks and the edges to put a razor edge on it. And you're not going to give yourself, you cannot give yourself a razor edge, but with other people knocking those burrs and those chunks off you, you start to sharpen up. And so I think part of it is that self awareness, is that yeah, okay, I'm not very good in these circumstances, I'm not great there, but not using that as an excuse not to relationship. Use that as a platform to relationship and work on it, you know, and allow other people to work on you, to speak into your life, whilst you're doing the same to someone else. Um, you know, be prepared to receive advice as much as you are to give it,
Preach.
because
Yeah.
that's what relationship, isn't it? It's you know yeah, that's how we will build ourselves, is by being built. you know um and so I think that you know set yourself the challenge of ditching your mobile device for a while and connecting with someone. I don't know how you do that now, actually, because your only way of connecting with someone is through a mobile device, unless because you break the law or you're listening to this in a country that doesn't have COVID. In which case, then
Shout out to New Zealand.
yeah, yeah. In which case, fill your boots, do what you want. I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do. But I think but pursuing those healthy relationships. Don't be concerning yourself about how many people liked your Instagram post or re-TikToked your TikTok. I don't know how that one
I
works.
don't know that. I might have touched
No,
that one, I'm afraid.
no. But don't worry about those things. They're you know, there's always going to be someone with more Twitter followers than you have, so I shouldn't worry about those things. And instead, I think that kind of that three musketeer mentality, one for all and all for one, kind of have that, you know, find your D'Artagnan, that person who will, who will throw themselves into the fight for you and who you will throw into the fight, for them.
Yeah.
I think there's, um, and do it together. Be prepared to be a mess. What was it you like to say? Messy action? Is that your?
Take messy action.
Yeah, yeah. And I think relationship is 100% messy action. Um,
Yeah. You're
I,
trying to
I
put two imperfect people to cohabitate together. It's just
yeah, 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 exactly. So I think relationship is all messy and great. Let's do it. That's how humanity has got to the top of the food chain. you
Yeah.
know. So,
I would like to issue a challenge to all the listeners, and that is to not be part of the 45-degree culture. If you look, if you, I know you, I love the perplexed look because I only heard about it recently as well, and then realized I was 100% a part of it. So the next time you, well, it's hard to do, but next time you happen to be out, maybe perhaps the supermarket or sat when restrictions ease, and there's a cafe, and you get to people watch when there's actually a sufficient amount of people there, look and see how many people you observe or have their head tilted down at 45 degrees looking at their phone. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
like it.
Right, because I know I'm 100% part of that group, and I'm kind of like, oh, right, okay. And it's like, yeah, we millennials seem to have evolved this sixth sense of knowing when it's safe to cross the road, despite never looking. Earphones in, eyes on screen. It's all right. I know.
Precognition.
Yeah, I have seen that 30-ton lorry. I have time to cross the road. Don't worry about me. I'm not gonna get scrubbed. Yeah, that's my challenge to listeners. And I would also say, be truly honest with yourself. If you're lonely, reach out to people, and if someone reaches out to you for loneliness, respond, and help.
Absolutely.
If you know
Even if
you
it doesn't seem like they're reaching out for loneliness, if they've just sent you a text out of the blue and they haven't been in touch for a while, respond.
yes,
Don't think, oh, I'm not going to respond to you because this is the first time you've messaged me since 2019. Just answer,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, make sure this ties in so well with our last chat anyway, with the 7 types of rest. Make sure you have a good relationship with yourself so that
Yeah.
you're well rested, and then from a good relationship with yourself and the correct amount of rest, your relationships, not just with yourself internally, will be good, but your external relationships will also flourish because you're not going to be
Yeah.
snappy. You're not going to say something you instantly regret. Someone who's maybe asking a genuine question, or maybe you're both at your wits end and you both love each other really, but
Mm,
you end up snapping at each other because you're both in the middle of a pandemic, impatient, not well rested, and at your wits end. So be proactive, not reactive to your environment, and take charge of not only yourself but the relationships in your life.
yeah.
And ask yourself, when after you watch this TED video, where can I improve my relationships so that I'm not wealthy but alone. It's a very lonely place being king of the hill, you know.
Yeah.
um so yeah, that's all for me on relationships for this month. Nathan, and last to add?
No, no, I couldn't say anything more. So that's good.
Fair enough. If you've enjoyed this episode today, do let us know on all the socials, and let us know as well, how are you going to cultivate your relationships? And if
Yeah.
you do actually have a TED talk in particular, or even any sort of themed discussion you would like me and Nathan to cover in next month's topic, do let us know. Me and Nathan do also occasionally do a week free topic, and cover that. It could be anything. So again, if you want us to give our perspectives on it, let us know.
Yeah.
And apart from that, folks, really glad you were able to join us today. And I want to wish you a great week and all the best. And Nathan, thanks a million again for coming on.
No worries. Thank you for having me.